You can't push a rope. Number 68, Matthew 12:38, 42. Welcome back. Today we'll be looking at the Gospel of Matthew to see how disciple makers ought to respond to highly resistant people. So let's dive in. The Gospel, Matthew 12:38, 42. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, "Teacher, we want to see a sign from you." Jesus replied, "A wicked and adulterous generation demands a sign, but none will be given it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will stand at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now one greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And now one greater than Solomon is here." My thoughts. Wait a minute. You're kidding me, right? That's how I would have responded if I were Jesus. I mean, they had already witnessed several signs. Even one of their number, Nicodemus, a Pharisee, says, "Rabbi, we know that you have come from God as a teacher, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him." John 3:2. So what's the deal with these guys? Why are they asking for another sign, and why does Jesus respond this way? First, I think those who are resolute unbelievers are not looking for a way to believe. They are leaning toward unbelief. And even if you moved heaven and earth, it wouldn't be good enough for them. Secondly, these guys are spiritually blind. They are not seeking truth. They are in control, as much as the Romans will let them be, and living a very comfortable life. They have wealth, respect, and the moral high ground. Who needs the truth? Tongue in cheek. They wouldn't recognize a sign if it came up and slapped them in the face. And Jesus' answer? Jesus is being Jesus, mysterious and succinct. He definitely lets them know they are way off target. He calls them a wicked and adulterous generation. But then he talks about his death and resurrection using the story of Jonah. I gotta be honest. I probably would have been looking at Jesus like a dog that just heard a strange whistle with my head cocked to one side. On the other hand, I hope I wouldn't have missed healing a leper, raising the dead, turning water into wine, feeding 5,000, and the list goes on. No, for the person that wants to believe, that would have been plenty. Jesus is really just giving the religious leaders what they want, nothing. Now, what does this have to do with disciple making? I have a saying, you can't push a rope. In other words, if people don't want to believe or do something, you can't make them. I've watched pushy evangelists get to the point where they have the recipient in a spiritual headlock with their high-pressure sales tactics to get them to make a profession of faith. The weak and polite will play along just to get the guy off their back. The only thing that can stop these persistent apologists is a hard red light. Jesus didn't do this. He was a take-or-leave-it kind of evangelist. He wasn't going to manipulate or make anyone do anything. Sure, he contended for the faith, but it was usually when the religious leaders were attacking him. How did Jesus do it? How could he take a embrace-it or erase-it attitude? Because he knew only those of whom the Father was calling would believe. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. John 6:44. My story. This story is so ridiculous that it's hard to believe, but it's true nonetheless. When I was a chaplain for the U.S. Army Ranger School, I was giving a service in the mountain phase at Camp Merrill. After the service, a Ranger student came up to me and said, "Chaplain, I'm very close to believing in God." I responded, "Good. What would push you over the edge?" He replied, "Well, when we were on patrol, I prayed and told God if he was real, strike me with lightning. And a few minutes later, a lightning bolt struck so close, it knocked me and some of my buddies to the ground." I was dumbfounded. I said, "Number 1, don't pray those kinds of prayers around me. Second, don't be praying for a piano to fall out of the sky. And third, hasn't God shown you enough?" He said, "I'm close, chaplain, I'm real close." I walked away scratching my head. Our action plan. How do we help disciple makers develop a good strategy for dealing with stubborn and unbelieving people? Here's some ideas. Look at all the ways Jesus deals with stubborn and unbelieving people. Give them ample warning about these kinds of people. In your times together, help them focus on how to feed the hungry and not spend much time on how to force feed the spiritually anorexic. It's so important to teach budding disciple makers where to spend their time. Don't let them waste too much time on those who really don't want it or sidetrack them from the mission.